Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2024 release Abigail, and I'm going to tell you off the bat, I've heard a lot of people saying that they really like this film, that it's a fun, good time. I didn't really like it, and obviously I'm going to break down and tell you why that's the case. The other issue I have that I would just want to get out of the way is the fact that I did end up seeing the trailer. I don't remember why I ended up seeing it. I typically don't watch trailers because of what I'm going to tell you. They give so much away about this film that it actually, if you've seen the trailer, it actually ruins part of the movie, honestly. It's not great. I mean, it literally, by having seen the trailer and knowing a key thing about the film, it makes the portion getting to that thing you already know about kind of painful, unfortunately. So does a great disservice, the trailer for this movie, except, getting butts in seats for the theater, which, that's what the marketing team is trying to do. But anyway, let me talk more about Abigail in this no spoiler review. Directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, who did films such as, they had a section in VHS, they did Devil's Due, they had a section in Southbound, they did Ready or Not, which I really enjoyed. They did the 2022 Scream and Scream 6, which I actually enjoyed both of those, even though I'm not big into the Scream franchise. Written by Steven Shields, who also did Zombie Bashers, Hunted, and The Hole in the Ground, and Gary Busick, who did Watch Over Me, Stand Against Evil, Ready or Not, Castle Rock, the 2022 Scream, and Scream 6. So these guys have worked together before. This is a US, Canada, Ireland co-production, so it's shot in all those different places. I ended up renting this, something I don't typically do. I usually wait for home rentals until they go down, so it's usually like between 1 to 2 months, depending on the film, when it goes down in price. I didn't wait for that because when I'm recording this, it's very close to my birthday, and I was just like, I'm just going to treat myself because I've really been wanting to see this film. So for me, through Fandango at home, $21.19 with tax for the rental. I regret that. It is way too much to pay for this. If you are interested in seeing this, just wait until that price comes down, or until I'm pretty sure it goes to a streaming service. And then you can just do the streaming service for a month and it'll cost less than that. So me getting too, overzealous with trying to see this. So anyway, synopsis, without ruining anything that the trailer does. It is about a team of bad people who are tasked with kidnapping a girl named Abigail, and they take her to this house where they then have to watch over her and make sure that no one comes to try and get her back. They're holding her for ransom because her father is very rich. Now, things go wrong because people who are a part of this group start dying within the house while they're locked in and they cannot get out. That's as far as I'm going to go with it, because if you haven't seen the trailer, I would recommend not seeing the trailer and not having things ruined for you about the story. But I also didn't really like this film, so, But I don't want to spoil it for people who did want to see it. It has an intriguing thriller-style setup, but as the film goes on, the thriller aspect becomes very cliche and holds the film back from being something much better than it could have been. Tonally, it feels very mixed up. A lot of the times I find myself being like, what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to go hard on the thriller? Are we trying to be ridiculous and kind of comedic? Are we trying to be horror? Like, what are we doing? The way things came together and were mixed in the script just did not come together in a good way. It felt a lot to me like they were trying to capture the exact tone and aspects of Ready or Not. So I see where they were trying to do that, but it definitely failed in my opinion. Although obviously it's just my opinion because I know a lot of people are liking this. But a film like this, I would say just watch Ready or Not, because that is actually a really fun, good film. This one, I didn't feel like so much. Although there are some good things about it. It does hit the ground running. That's one of the great things. It starts very quick. It hooks you in. It makes you very interested in the underlying story that they're going to end up telling. Unfortunately, that underlying story is stretched out so long. It's an hour and 49-minute movie with credits. And I think easily they should have cut 30 minutes out of this thing. It is bloated. There are too many instances of dialogue going on just way too long. Every single scene feels like it should have been cut down a little bit. They just keep belaboring things, and it treats your audience like you're stupid. Like it really, they just keep going after the same thing over and over and over again in each scene, where they're just like, are you getting it? Are you getting it? Are you getting it? Yeah, we got it the first time you were showing us what was going on. Can we move now? Because the pacing in this movie sucks. It is terrible. And this is the reason that we don't need almost 2-hour horror films. When it's warranted because there's a lot of story, that's fine. But there is not much story here at all. And the little bit of story there is sucks. It's not a good story. It's a good concept. It's a terrible story, in my opinion. There are plenty of characters introduced early, so you know there's going to be a lot of satisfying deaths. Now, there are some satisfying deaths, and there is some good gore in this, but I would argue with the type of film this is, and with the tone they were trying to go for, they should have had every single death be more elaborate and way more over the top with gore. I had seen someone online kind of say that they felt like this could have been a lot better if it was done like Evil Dead Rise, just going over the top with the gore, trying to throw it at you as much as possible. I agree with that. It definitely should have been that. They should have gone harder at the kind of horror aspect, less at the thriller aspect, and harder on the more creative kills with tons and tons and tons of gore. But a lot of the kills actually were not that creative. And there were plenty of them early on in the film, at least, that didn't have enough blood. And so much so that early on I was like, what is this rated? Is this PG-13? It eventually gets there to being like, oh, okay, yeah, it is an R-rated film, but I just don't understand why we weren't at that level for the whole movie. It's very weird to me. Melissa Barrera is in this, and her character seems over the top, and her performance exacerbates that. I saw her in one of the Scream movies, or I don't know, I think she was in both those Scream movies, actually, that these two did. And I thought she was fine. I don't know what happened here. Am I just realizing that I don't like her acting, or was she not good in this? Because she has Richard Gere acting face, slash Olivia Munn acting face. That's where there's no emotion shown when lines are delivered. She can deliver lines okay, typically okay, in this film not so great, but there is nothing happening here. Every single line she says, when it's supposed to be different emotions, her face looks exactly the same. No expressions whatsoever. And she's supposed to be the main character, so that really brings the film down, unfortunately. So I don't know, maybe I'm just not a Melissa Barrera fan. Maybe I need to see her in The Right Thing. Maybe I need to go revisit those Scream films to decide if I just missed it in those. The dialogue is mostly pretty bad and is also often delivered in an overemphasized manner. I think maybe the choice to have everything be so overemphasized and ridiculous may have been part of trying to lean into that kind of comedic, ridiculous tone, like Ready or Not, but it did not work. It just came off as making the actors seem like they didn't really know what they were doing so much. And that's not every single actor. There were some actors in this who I think actually did a nice job. Not everyone, though. Melissa Barrera, obviously, being one of the big ones. The pacing suffers from overly long scenes of dialogue that states things that don't need said, and just overly long scenes that become very boring. Something I already said about it, but it does bring up an extra aspect of there's a lot of stuff said in the dialogue that just doesn't need to be said. It's one of those things of like show, don't tell, and that's the thing that they do with writing. I think that's a Stephen King thing, like show, don't tell. And they do too much telling. Again, going back to the whole treating your audience like they're stupid. People are going to get it. This isn't a deep film. There's not a whole lot going on. The story's very simple. Let's give people a little more credit here. The set design is pretty great, though, and it adds a lot to the atmosphere. This does have very nice atmosphere. Set design is wonderful. The house they were in looks super creepy and cool, and I love it. I think this should be the setting for a lot of other films. Love that. Love that aspect of it. There are comedic moments, but I don't think they're actually funny. This is one of the big problems for me. When you're trying to put comedy into a horror film, you need to make sure it's funny. all the things that were supposed to be funny in this film actually were just very overwrought, cliched things. Like, there's literally a moment, this doesn't really spoil anything, there's literally a moment where someone falls asleep and someone draws a penis on their face. And that's supposed to be like this big funny moment. It's not. Like, this has been done so many times and it's just not funny anymore. Like, that's the level of comedy they're going for. Like, this is the best we got. It is the laziest comedic stuff I have seen in quite a while. The cast is a real mixed bag, which makes the character chemistry all sorts of weird. The way some of these characters play off each other, actually kind of cool. The way other characters play off each other, really cringe. And you're just like, what is going on here? So when you put them all together, you're just like, none of this feels right. It just feels so off in a really bad way. Not in the way that things should feel off in a horror film, which is, oh my gosh, I'm like unsettled, I'm creeped out. It's a feeling off of just like, this movie doesn't feel like it's working right now. And there was a lot of that in it. The ending is so ridiculously drawn out. So ridiculously drawn out. Again, going back to this, a whole half hour needed to be cut off this. At least they could have cut even more, honestly, to make it a much tighter, better film. They just go on and on and on. This film was way too long for what it is. Yep, already said that. They were trying to do another movie like Ready or Not, but couldn't. There's also another film that I think they were trying to be kind of like, but I'm not going to say what that is because it would be a little bit spoilery for stuff that I'm intentionally not trying to give away that the trailer gave away. If you want to know, ask me in the comments because we can do spoilers in the comments and I will tell you. Just ask me. What was the other movie comparison that you were talking about? The best thing about this film is the concept, and then additionally the performance of Alicia Weir as the character of Abigail. She did a really fun job, and I think that there's a lot of fun over the top that she does that is wonderful. That was the right type of over the top, like what she ended up nailing. A bunch of other people, it's just not great. And there's also a character who, like, the way he is changes towards the end of the film, and it kind of seems to me like they cast him based on how his character would be at the end of the film, not in the beginning of the film. So he doesn't do a good job as the character in the beginning. He does a good job as a character in the end, and that just felt really wrong. Like, they should have found someone who could hit both those parts. But then again, that also may not have been that individual. That may have been the directors asking for something specific. And even if he was doing it his own way, the directors are always free to step in and say, look, let me give you some direction. That's what directors do. Maybe we change it up a little bit. Maybe we tone it down some. Maybe we get a little less ridiculous because maybe we'll be more ridiculous later. Final thought. All right. Melissa Barrera is the new Monica Keena. Kind of looks like her, kind of has the acting chops of her. If you don't know who Monica Keena is, she was the final girl in Freddy vs. Jason, which actually is a pretty underrated film in my opinion. Very fun. I would much rather watch that than Abigail. But anyway, out of 5 stars, half stars in play, 2 stars on Abigail. Not a big fan. Yeah, not good. But I'm always open to hearing other people's opinions on this, so if you liked the film, or if you didn't, or if you're in between, go ahead and put comments down there. Like I said, we can do spoilers, we can talk about this, because there have been times where people have been able to kind of point stuff out to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, that kind of does change the way I experience the film, so thank you for pointing that out. So I don't think that my opinion is like truth. My opinion is my opinion, and everyone has one, and we should share those and kind of learn from each other. So thank you for watching this. I appreciate it. Do me a favor and hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That's your best way to repay me for all the free content. Thumbs up is always helpful for that YouTube algorithm help, and you can hit the notification bell button. Sorry, it's one of those days. And that way you'll know when I'm putting up new videos. Regardless, thank you so much for taking your time to watch this. And until next time, keep it brutal.